govern human activities, but all rules and regulation are not law. Many moral and ethical rules or principles and also customs do not necessarily constitute law. There's rule, norm, folkways or more are not law, since if they do not follow them, the state cannot take action against the offender unless the custom is turned into a law. Laws are rules behind which there is a sanction of punishment or reward from a state. The state is the highest level of society, which establishes certain reforms to govern human
Madam,
behavior
maaf
under
nanti
its jurisdiction.
suara macam
This a
ini.
general rule of
Suara macam apa?
Macam bertintih macam tu.
enforced by
Ya.
Apa sebab
So media kena tutup
ya.
The laws that are passed by a state and enforced by a legitimate authority apparently seem to originate from the legislature, but in fact they are drawn from various sources. The main sources of law are custom, religion, education, juries, and legislation. Sources of law are the origins of law, the binding rule that enable any state to govern its territory.
So next is custom law. Customary law of the local people is developed and handed down from time immemorial. Customary law, what is their roles? It plays a vital role in regulating human behavior. In Malaysia, custom is also known as adat. Adat in Malaysia is heavily influenced by the Malay Sultanate life in the past. It is because custom or adat in Malaysia is a symbolic and identity of a Malay people. But the Malay Sultanate was recognized by the norms, customs, and values. From back past many years, Malay culture has been passed down orally from generation to generation. Since Malaysia has multiracial, there are few and many types of custom. There are few of custom law which are Iban customary law, Dusun customary law, Adat Temenggung, and Adat Perpatih. Adat Temenggung and Adat Perpatih is famous because it is practicing by the Peninsular people. Other than that, both of the custom is a symbolic and honor with the Malay Sultanate life of the past. In addition, custom is a helpful and honorable things in Malaysia. Adjudication is one of the source of law. Adjudication means judge-made laws. In any situation, the judge cannot find the appropriate law that's suitable with the cases. Making adjudication enforceable is one method to have influence on its implementation. So, in Malaysia, the cases must ready for adjudication in order to be determined. A definitive decision in a preceding case under this theory prevents litigation of the cases is finding their truth. When the claim is filed, the court determines the parties' right at the time by examining what were in law, the rights and wrongs at their acts at the time. It is a legal process of disagreement or determining a case. This indicates that the case must have progressed to the point where there has become a genuine significant disagreement requiring judicial action.
Source of law: religion. Religion is another important of law because religion is the basis of human life. Religion is a necessary discipline in maintaining the unity of society. People believe that it is a divine law and will incur wrath if it is not obeyed. In Islamic states, they make Quran and Sunnah as their sources of law. For example, in Malaysia, which making Islam the religion of the federation, has certain institutions and departments regulating Islamic affairs and Muslim community. In Malaysia, Muslims are subjected to Sharia law and also Sharia court to punish any wrongdoing. The Sharia court plays a role in resolving family problems such as marriage and divorce. Besides, it also solves social problems in society such as gambling and drinking alcohol. In addition, the Sharia court also assists and resolves the division of estate and related matters. The Sharia court has three levels, namely the Sharia appeal court, the Sharia high court, and the Sharia subordinate court. The powers of the Sharia court are under state enactment.
Legislation. The most important source of law is legislature. Legislation is a law or a series of laws enacted by the parliament. The term is often used to describe the process of enacting the new legislation. The legislature is the legitimate state's authority to make a law in the most legal system. It is the only body that can change the constitution and the law of the country. In Malaysia, Parliament is the legislature where all laws, policies and the programs are devised by the Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara. Legislative power is power to enact law that apply to the Federation as a whole under Article 66(1) of the Federal Constitution. However, any law passed after 31st August 1957 that is not accordant with the Constitution will be repealed. Article 4(1). At the federal level, legislative power lies in the bilateral parliament headed by Yang di-Pertuan Agong, which consists the Dewan Negara and Dewan Rakyat. The distribution of the legal responsibilities between the federal and the state governments is outlined in the 9th schedule of the Federal Constitution with the Federalists, Stateless and Common List. The main subject areas of the Federalists include foreign affairs, defense, internal security, civil and criminal, citizenship, finance, trade and shipping, communication, health and labor. Meanwhile, land, agriculture, forestry, district governance, river fisheries, Islamic law, and other topics are included in the state list. The joint list, overseen by both federal and state governments, cover social assistance, scholarship, wildlife conservation, town and state planning. If there is a conflict between federal and state law, federal law takes priority over state law. Parliament produced a large number of publications containing law, especially federal law, which are officially published in the government gazette by the government printer. In conclusion, there are 5 main source law, namely custom, religion, adjudication, juries, and legislation. The source of law is an essential aspect of law since it aids the definition of law. Generally, the law is derived from these sources. The sources of law are the tools, methods, and strategies that the legal system employs in order to carry out its social aims and purposes, which are to deliver justice to the people in the most effective and sufficient manner possible. The sources of law are concerned with the methodologies of thinking and interpretation of law, rather than the issues, concepts, and norms of specific legislation.
Alright, thank you kepada presenter. So, Madam minta 3 soalan daripada members of the floor to be asked to the presenters so that they will gain marks for Q&A session. Okay, soalan?
Saya nak tanya Madam,
Boleh, Nurin.
what are the importance of law?
What are the importance of law? Why is it important for law to be existed? Okay, siapa nak jawab? Wan Alia ke, Fahmi Syakira ke, atau
Saya
Fatin?
ada.
Itu yang tak ada lain tu.
Saya.
Okay, jawab.
Law is important to control society in the state and to reduce crime. Because law provide guidelines to the people, which is what they can do and what they cannot do in state. For example, is criminal law to punish people who doing a crime. With this, society will feel more safe in state.
Alright, so that is the importance of law ya. Nak hukum penjenayah, nak jaga keamanan. Okay, Nurin and all semua boleh faham why it is important to have law?
Faham Madam?
Alright, okay, second question for Wan Alia atau Fatin tak ada lain ya Wan Alia?
Ya, Madam.
Alright, tak apa. Soalan untuk Fatin. Ya, Wan Nurfanis Shah ke? Boleh?
Madam, saya nak tanya, what is the difference between the custom and law?
What is the difference between custom and law? Apakah bezanya antara adat dan juga undang-undang? Okay, Wan Alia, can you give the answer?
Okay, thank you, Madam, and thank you for Fanisha Alia for the question. Okay, first of all, let me tell you about the similarity. The similarity between the custom and law are prioritizing the outward behavior, which is a good attitude for the public. And difference for the custom is, custom it has an authority among the community, which is their attitude is natural because it was practiced when they were young. They also respect about their own custom.
Okay.
Especially for the Malaysia, custom is a high level in their community. And next, for the law. Law is more to force power. It is if the citizens breaking the order, the citizens will get the punishment. But even it is a force power, still many people and citizens who breaking the law. So according to the difference, we can see that custom is very flexible and many people will follow the rule other than a law. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, semua faham tak apa maksud, apa beza? Thank you Wan Alia. Apa bezanya undang-undang dengan adat tadi? Adat ni mungkinlah lebih kepada benda yang dari kita kecil, yang kita practice sampai kita sedari, dan lebih kepada kita rela lah. Law pula dia ada unsur paksaan sikit lah, maknanya orang kata sometimes kita tak suka but we have to, because kalau tak kita kena punishment. Okay, alright, so soalan yang ketiga boleh diutarakan di dalam WhatsApp. Okay, dalam WhatsApp nanti seorang lagi tu Fatin kan akan jawab. Okay, group 1. So kita pergi kepada group yang seterusnya.
Thank you, Madam.
Alright. Sekejap. Okay, so group seterusnya adalah the merits and demerits of suppression of power, iaitu geng-geng lelaki. Adib, Akmal Akram, geng kembar Ahmad Faris. Betul
Betul, Madam.
Alright, sekejap Madam cari kamu punya evaluation form. Merits Suppression of Power. Okay, kita tengok. Kelas B ni bagus sebab dia letak nama dekat bila present tu dia tak susah nak mencari-cari. Okay, semua ahli grup okay ke? Masuk madam. Alright. Ni kena slow this.
Separation of power applies to the division of legislative, executive, and judicial function of the government into independent and autonomous bodies. It has been proposed that such a division decreases the likelihood of arbitrary government access because of the making, executing, and administering of legislations requires the consent of all three branches. Malaysia's separation of power scheme is closer to the English legal system of the United Kingdom rather than United States. Because of the cabinet style structure, there is no division of executive and legislative authority. The Westminster system is built on this convergence of legislative roles. As a democratic country, Malaysia requires the Prime Minister to come from the Dewan Rakyat. In Malaysia, the ceremonial executive, the WDPA, is an integral part of Parliament and also serves as monarchy power, thereby being an integral part of Malaysia's separation of powers. The cabinet is selected by the WDPA on the Prime Minister's recommendations. In Malaysia, the doctrine of separation of power is clearly stated in Article 131, 44, and 29 of the Federalist Constitution.
In order to avoid duplication of jurisdiction in the same party, is not involved in the management of more than one authority. Logically, in the concept of governance of a country, there are various types of specific bodies that are responsible in implementing matters related to it field only. If the jurisdiction is too much, it will lead to the emergence of certain weaknesses in the administration of the body. For example, the executive must not interfere with the jurisdiction exercised by the legislature. This is because the legislature is responsible for forming the national legal system, while the executive manages matters related to administration at the federal or state level, which only has the power to rule and administer. In the executive's body, there is also a division of power between the administration at the federal and the state levels. If this separation of power is not done, then it is likely that the ruling government can run the government of a state, because not all the states are ruled by the ruling party, but also by the opposition party that win election at the state level will rule the country. For example, after the party Islam Malaysia won the 2008 general election in Kedah, the Kedah state government was ruled by PAS. The party in power can formulate policy for the rule country but cannot be contrary to the federal constitution. The same is true for the judiciary, which is solely responsible for providing justice, reviewing the law, ensuring that the law is not inconsistent with the federal constitution, and be able to prevent action taken by the ruling party that are proven to be contrary to the federal or state constitution. This body clearly shows that it cannot combine its power with the executive, but it can be seen that the judiciary has similarity with the legislature. So, it is clear that if each body is placed under one management, there is possibility that there will be various problems that only involve the interest of a few parties. The legal and judiciary field require members who are expert in ensuring that every law enacted can be implemented effectively without the intervention of the executive body at the federal or state level. This is because, in order to decide and formulate policy, as well as ensure that agency specialized departments are able to implement their respective field, this is the role of the executive body.
There is a high probability that there will be abuse and misuse of power that can cause the law to favor and benefit the government in power. If the three of administration power, namely the executive, legislative, and judiciary, are centralized in one body only, problems such as abuse of power that can damage the administration of the country are most likely to occur if the Prime Minister and Minister have the power to enact national law. This is also the case at the judiciary body, where the Prime Minister has to seek the opinion of the justice. This is because all appointments of federal or high court judges are appointed by YDPA on the advice of Prime Minister, on the advice of the Conference of Rules. Therefore, the doctrine of suppression of power can reduce problems such as abuse of power.
Ni yang dia kata tersekat tu
Accuracy of the
okay.
division of administrative authorities based on the doctrine of suppression of power can simplify responsibility to entities such as the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Furthermore, policy executed at each level of the relevant organization can help to strengthen national government. This is because there will be no direct intervention in each other's jurisdiction. The executive body, whether federal or state, has a responsibility in carrying out government and administration affairs based on jurisdiction and will not be involved in the operation of the judiciary and legislature. This body is also in charge of enforcing legislation passed by the legislature, whether at the federal level by parliament or at the state level by the legislative assembly. Where the task of drafting, changing and approving law is left to the legislature, in carrying out the administration of the country, the executive body will make law and regulation as a guide either at the federal level or at the state level. And the judiciary has a role to play in judicial matters, which is responsible for protecting human rights from being violated by individuals or by the government itself. The judiciary must oversee the law enacted by the executive so that they do not conflict. This is to ensure that the executive body does not abuse its power in enacting law. In the absence of the intervention of the bodies, this can ensure that each body is able to use its administrative power efficiently and effectively.
Not fully feasible in practice. Departments like legislature, executive, and judiciary should be independent of each other. For example, legislature is responsible for forming the national legal system, while the executive manages matters related to administration at the federal or state level. If there is a measure of power between these departments, it will cause problems such as abuse of power, lack of cooperation, and the government will become unstable.
The situation that occurs in Malaysian system of government where the lawmakers are also people who implement the law. Although this is clearly contrary to the concept of suppression of power by Montesquieu, but the basis of this theory is a guideline in implementing this concept according to Malaysian taste. But the excessive power given to the Prime Minister as head of the legislature can invite abuse of power, and this will result in suffering to the society.
Yang ni ke yang masalah tu, yang message madam tadi? Tak apalah, sekejap je.
Power in Malaysia is not absolute, but from this concept, there is a system of control and balance of power in the country. The government can be controlled from acting harshly against the country, and the freedom of the people can be guaranteed. The process of mutual control between one power and another can be balanced. Nobody is more powerful and capable of overcoming the power of another bodies. But in Malaysia, this fact is not true because the member of the executive body and the legislature are the same people. This situation is contrary to the concept of suppression of power because the measure of the members of these two bodies consists of the same person. It is termed as the concept of measures of powers. The measure of powers between the executive and the legislature, a motion table in parliament for debate, will be a policy that needs to be practiced. Although the policy is not very popular and unpopular among people, the executive will still implement it because they are the ones who approve the motion in the House. When excessive power is given to a body in the case of Malaysia, the executive and legislature, then no other body can be withhold or balance the power that is in that body. Even these bodies will try to influence and control the course of other bodies.
The doctrine of separation of power introduced by the Western political thinkers does not contradict the concept of Islam. If examined, the practice of separation of power has already occurred in the system of governments in the early days of Islam. Nevertheless, the role of legislative power, executive power, and the judicial power is different from the Western concepts. According to the Islamic perspective, this body should play a role based on the Islamic law and the ijtihad of the scholars, while, according to the Western concepts, the powers are free to act according to the ruling made by the ruling governments, based on the ideology they practice. What is practiced in Malaysia is the amalgamation of power between the executive body and the legislative body, while the judiciary is separately from the two bodies and has a freedom to act in accordance to the provision of federal constitutions. The combination of powers between the legislative and executive in Malaysia is not against Islamic law if it aims to uphold justice and prevent injustice. Similarly, the judiciary in Malaysia must act separately from the other powers. The method can be practiced as long as the basic principles of Islamic politics are preserved, and there are no practices that contradict the principle of Islam. The principle of Sharia politics must continue to be preserved without neglecting the rights and responsibility of the governments and the people.
Okay, terima kasih. Meda rasa presentation yang bagus lah, suara yang kuat. Cuma kalau slide tu ada gambar-gambar sikit okay, but basically macam bersemangat lah group ni. Tadi Faris ada message madam rasanya. Memang Faris lah dia message madam, dia cakap ada technical error but it's very minor lah, macam terpause sekejap macam tu. Okay, so very good lah group ni. Belum lagi Q&A, madam cakap very good tu maksudnya good lah. Okay, so madam buka 4 soalan. Mereka ni macam antara yang full mark ni. Okay, 4 soalan daripada members of the floor sebab kita nak tengok pula dia punya Q&A macam mana how they handle Q&A session. Okay, ini pun akan membawa kepada 10 markah lah kalau perfect. Okay, alright, 4 soalan daripada kawan-kawan.
Madam, saya ada soalan. Okay, the question is, how is the concept check and balance is formed and what is the function?
Okay, cepat. Apa dia tadi soalan?
How is the concept check and balance is formed and what is the function?
Okay. Macam manakah konsep check and balance? Betul tak? Lagi apa tadi? Saya tak dengar.
Bagaimana konsep semak dan imbang tu dibentuk dan apa tujuan dia?
Okay, how check and balance in separation of powers happen? Dia rasa macam tu kot soalan dia. And then apakah fungsinya? What is important lah to have check and balance? Alright, boleh one of you jawab soalan?
Okay, madam. The concept of check in the constitution emerged as a result of a branch in the classical theory in question the division of power between the three men's body, where this division of power can make a different power between the three bodies. After that, there is a Bush development and balance, where it is exists in intent to ensure that the power of government will not use rudely and beyond the pres, uh, prescribed limit of power. And in addition, it can also be said to be control constitution in which every branch in government and is been restricting power to each other until there is no one between them to be highest branch.
Okay, boleh faham tak? Check and balance ni macam mana? Check and balance ni dia akan terjadi bila dia ada 3 badan. Contoh macam kita lah buat group assignment. So bila kita ada 4 orang, so yang ni akan tegur, yang ni akan tegur. So itu yang akan terjadi bila kita ada separation of powers, 3 badan yang berlainan tu lah. Dan fungsi dia of course lah kalau kerajaan sentiasa ditegur, kan, ini akan memberi benefit yang bagus lah kepada rakyat. Sebab kerajaan ni macam tak boleh, bila dia ditegur macam tu dia takut nak buat kokse-kokse. So yang bagusnya rakyat lah. Alright, okay, good answer. Okay, seterusnya.
Madam, saya nak tanya.
Alright, Fahmi Syakira.
How did the history of the concept of separation of powers take place?
Bagaimanakah bermulanya? Betul tu kan? Sejarah separation of powers, betul? Okay, boleh ada yang boleh jawab?
Saya madam.
Okay, boleh jawab?
The concept of separation of power has long been known by the ancient Greek society, but the known separation of power is not as perfect as it's known now. Along with the passage of time and age, this isolation of power suffered certain change and adjustment. The existence of the concept of separation of power better known to come from Europe beginning at the end of the century 18 as a result of the continued oppressions and tyranny by government at the time.
Okay.
Figures that are synonymous and often associated with the emergence of this concept is mostly few. Even so, this idea is what created by several previous political figures before that. Among them were Plato, Aristotle, and John Locke. Itu je, madam.
Alright, okay, so madam tak jelas kan, madam dengar juga. So dia datang daripada seorang daripada scholar kat France tu, Montesquieu kan. So dia telah mengeluarkan teori ni teori sebenarnya, theory of separation of powers. Sebab masa tu kerajaan sangat kejam, sangat suka-suka hati dia buat apa. So amalan ini telah dikeluarkan untuk menghalang macam kerajaan membuat sewenang-wenangnya, dan ianya telah disokonglah oleh John Locke, okay, oleh orang kata scholar-scholar lain. Betul tak? Betul kan kamu cakap macam tu kan?
Betul.
Yes, that is a good practice lah. Kalau kita macam kita, kalau kita ikut kepala kita seorang, kalau kita nak tolong macam tu lah. Tapi kalau kita ada 2-3 orang lagi yang akan menegur kita, so ini bagus. Alright, so very good. Okay, the third question.
Saya, madam.
Alright, tanya.
Question dia, state the effect that will happen if power mixing.
The
effect.
Madam, are you there?
Assalamualaikum. Sorry, Umar Madam blackout jadi teruslah not connected lah. Okay, macam mana tadi soalan tadi? State tadi mana dengar?
Soalan dia, state the effect that will happen if power mixing.
State the effect that will happen
If power mixing. Efek yang akan berlaku sekiranya bercampur kuasa, campur tangan kuasa berlaku.
Oh, so maknanya kalau tak ada separation of powers lah. Alright. Okay, so ada siapa yang nak jawab?
Saya, Madam.
Alright. Adib.
If the power mixing happen, the government will be disturbed and many problems will be arise. For example, abuse of power, lack of cooperation, and there will be injustice in the government. So the people will be burdened.
Okay.
That's all, Madam.
Alright, so maksudnya kalau kuasa bercampur baur ini akan memberi kesan yang buruk lah sebenarnya pada rakyat. Itu yang kita nak elakkan sebenarnya ya. Bila kerajaan dia buat suka-suka hati, berkeadaan tidak cekap. Suppression of power ni bukan saja kejam, dia tak cekap sebab tak ada orang tegur. So ini akan memberi impact yang teruk lah kepada rakyat. Okay, so rakyat ni kebanyakan macam timun lah. So apa-apa yang durian buat, timun terpaksa dengar, terpaksa ikut dan terpaksa orang kata yang terkorban macam tu. Alright, so that's not good lah, that is the effect lah. Okay, and last question for Faris. Faris ada ke?
Ada.
Alright, okay, so last question for Faris.
Saya, Madam.
Okay.
Okay, soalan dia, what is the difference between checks and balances and separation of powers?
Alamak, sama je lah. Bukanlah separation of power tu check and balance. Soalan lain, Aiman.
Oh my god.
Okay, cepat. Soalan lain. Sebab soalan tu macam tak valid pun ada. Apakah bezanya separation of power dan check and balance? Soalan lain. Ada ke soalan lain? Saya mikir dah. Okay, my question is, soalan Madam lah. Which one is? Okay, kamu lah. Okay.
Okay. Soalan dia, how does separation of powers protect human rights?
How?
How does separation of powers protect human rights?
How does separation of powers protect human rights? Okay, Faris jawab, Faris. Mana muka Faris? Ni tak nampak meja.
Macam mana soalan ni?
How separation of powers protect human rights? Dia pusing pula ke human rights tiba-tiba.
Sekejap ada.
Okay, tak apa.
Madam.
Okay, boleh jawab.
The separation of power is dengar, Madam.
Dengar. Separation of power is
the separation of power is an important feature of the protection of human rights since it allows a formal process for the action of the executive and the legislature to be challenged in the court. That this challenge occur, it is an essential aspect of the rule of law. Boleh Madam contoh?
Boleh, tapi macam okay, separation of powers ni kenapa dia protect human rights? Sebab bila kerajaan kerja betul-betul, so tak akan buatkan rakyat teraniaya. So itulah sebenarnya protect human rights. Kalau kerajaan zalim, kerajaan tak jaga rakyat betul-betul, itu bukan saja tak protect, malah dia violate pula human rights, because our rights is to have a good government. Alright, okay, thank you. Okay, next presenter, last ke? Yang yang last ke?
Madam, yang last ke?
Alright, mari kita habiskan kelas awal. Lega sikit. So very good lah group yang ni. Okay, kita pergi last kali pasal North Korea. Okay. Entah. Okay, kejap. Seronok ni North Korea ni Oh. Okay. North Korea. Okay. Nadira, Fanisha, Rabiatu Sahira. Rabiatu Tania. Saya tak ada suara ni.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Norabatul Sahira Zamri, and now I want to explain about introduction of autocracy. What is autocracy? Autocracy is a system of a government in which one person or powerful individual called autocrat who holds all the political, economic, social and military power. Usually, in an autocracy, all power is concentrated in a single center, be it an individual dictator or a group such as a dominant political party or central committee. Next is, usually the rule of the autocrat is absolute and cannot be regulated by the external legal restraint or democratic method of control. The rule is also unlimited and not subject to any legislative limitation. This is because all the decision is made by the autocrat that are the one who have all the power towards the decision. Next, I want to explain about the characteristic of autocracy. The first characteristic of autocracy is allow a little or no input from group members. This is because they aim to have and keep all the power for themselves only. All the decision made is consideration by their ideas and judgment and not involve or accept any advice from the followers. The second characteristic of autocracy is they get the power by using force. The autocratic power center use force to suppress opposition, to prevent social movement, and to ensure the citizens follow all decisions that they already set out. There are 5 types of autocracy, and the first one is authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is the form of government that uses a strong central power and using the enforcement of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. This type of autocracy is lack of concern for the wishes or opinion of others. Second type is absolute monarchy. This type of autocracy consists of rule by a king or queen as a head of the state that hold the power to make any law without being questioned by anyone else. One of the countries that practice using this type of autocracy is Brunei Darussalam. The third type of autocracy is military rule. A military dictatorship that control over political authority and have the legal system applying to members of the armed force. Military rule also where military authority take over a normal administration of law, and the ideology of government as best served when under military control. More totalitarian also one of the type of autocracy. Totalitarian is a form of government that prohibits opposing political parties and ideology while controlling all aspects of the public and private life of the people. Under a totalitarian regime, all citizens are subject to the absolute authority of the state. And last but not least is oligarchy. Oligarchy is a small or elite group of people who have an authority to control the country.
North Korea is a democratic People's Republic that has multi-party under the leadership of Workers' Party of Korea that leads Democratic Front. Under WDPK, there is two parties, which is Korean Social Democratic Party and Chondois Chongu Party. These three parties are the main political parties in North Korea. All activities from Democratic People's Republic of Korea must be under the leadership of WDPK according to the country's constitution. The highest authority for WDPK is the Party Congress, which led by central committees. The role of the WDPK is to compile a list of approved candidates, and all political activities are directed by them or require their permission first and must follow party policies and guidelines. WDPK's powers has deteriorated when Kim Jong-il emphasized the importance of soldiers from the WDPK in late 1990s, but WDPK still continued to hold the authority over the public organizations such as youth, workers, and farmers, although they are not in a full control of economic activities in the countries. Next, Chondois Chongu Party is a party that third important party in North Korea. They are representing the native Korean religion of Chondoism. Chondoism is a religion that was found in 19th century of Korea. As of the most recent political decision in 2019, three galleries, the WDPK, Korean Social Democratic Party, and Chondois Chongu Party, are addressed in the Supreme People's Assembly, the country's unicameral parliament. North Korea also has opposition parties. One of them is Free Joseon. It was known by citizens as a party that gives protection to Kim Han-so. Who is Kim Han-so? Kim Han-so is the son of Kim Jong-nam, who is the older brother of Kim Jong-un. This assassination was known and believed that Kim Jong-un who gave the order to murder him, which is why the party need to protect his son. Free Joseon also supported North Korean citizens who wants to leave North Korea. Next is the North Korea Freedom Coalition, NKFC. It is an organization that was established for freedom and human rights in North Korea. NKFC supported North Korea's Sanctions Enforcement Act of 2013 that will increase the section towards the abuse of human rights violation by imposing a financial sanctions on North Korea leaders. Besides, Fighters for a Free North Korea, FFNK, is a party that is known for launching balloons regularly that carry human rights and pro-democracy literature, DVDs, small portable video, and USB flash drive from South Korea into North Korea. These things are sent to make North Korean knows about the world outside North Korea. However, on December 2020, South Korea's National Assembly created a law that they will punish whoever who sends materials that related to anti-North Korea across the border.
After the end of the Japan-Korea War around 1944, Korea was divided into two countries, North Korea and South Korea. This country was ruled by two different powers, the Soviet Union and the United States. On October 14, 1944, the Soviet Union introduced Kim Il-sung, one of the people who was active in opposing Japan and trying to liberate Korea from the Japanese occupation. Kim Il-sung was the first Prime Minister of North Korea, or known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, which was established on September 9, 1948. Government in North Korea is divided into three branches: executive, legislature, and judiciary, but they are not dependent on each other. First is executive branch. This executive power is under the cabinet and under the leadership of the President North Korea. The Central People's Committee and the State Administrative Council are two cabinet organizations. The second branch is the legislature. In this legislation, there is a Congress, which is Supreme People's Assembly. Every 5 years, there will be elections for the Supreme People's Assembly, or SPA. The SPA is usually attended by a member of the Workers' Party Korea. The Constitution only allowing one party, the Workers' Party Korea. This party re-established by Kim Il-sung during his reign. Citizens aged 17 and above are eligible to be elected to the legislature, and they also have the right to vote in elections. The names of the selected candidates can only be included on the ballot paper when agreed by the community. The last branch is Judiciary. The Judiciary in North Korea conducts secret trials and does not respect human rights. The DPRK adopts a three-tier judicial system. First, the Central Court, Provincial Courts, and last, the People's Court. The Central Court is the highest court in the DPRK, and the decision made is a permanent decision and cannot be appealed. The court is headed by a Chief Justice, 2 executive judges, and several other judges.
I like to express my point regarding press in North Korea. Most of people might already know that all of movement in variety of form in North Korea are fully being controlled by their government. It is also accurate when it comes to North Korean media, which are being strictly monitored by their totalitarian governments, its leader Kim Jong-un, and regional events in order to compare with other global media outlets. Then, most of media content in North Korea focus on coverage of nuclear developments, human rights issues, and neighboring state relations from the North Korea's perspective. North Korea government had imposed a singular worldview on their citizens without allowing them any exposure to other views and opinions. For example, they will block any sources of international information and put a consistent dam of brutal attack and threat from the certain country, such as United States. This is because they intentionally want to jam endless support and encouragement from their citizens to the regime against United States. This is also one of their strategies to manipulate their citizens and also confuse international audience as the news strategically released through the domestic population. For example, government in North Korea also continuously publish the news about the greatness and history of family leader Kim Jong-un. So, this manipulation made by North Korean media indirectly made their citizens believe with all propaganda were designed.
The conclusion, autocratic is a form or a system of government that all matter related to politics, economic, military, and social is fully controlled by the supreme leader, which is in North Korea, the person who has the authority is Kim Jong-un. All the citizen matter or decision is fully made by the supreme leader, which is Kim Jong-un. And the people fate of how their living is in this type of autocracy are fully based on how the supreme leader wants. The way they control the country is also determined by them, whether it's mean the way they use are cruel, but as a people they have no right to speak, but can only follow the prescribed order. Because this type of government will not accept or hear any opinion or input of other people.
Alright, thank you. Komen madam okey juga group ni, cuma adalah kena presentation skill tu polish sikit lagi. Ya. Ada yang okey, ada yang macam suara tu lah, lontaran suara dan pronunciation tu lah propaganda. Macam tu. Okay, suara tu kena clear tapi gaya tu macam dah ada lah. Alright, soalan tentang North Korea.
I have a question.
Okay.
Just now, one of the presenter mentioned about the violation of the human rights issue in North Korea. Can you explain in more detail about the violation of the human rights issue that happened there?
Issue that happened in North Korea regarding? Okay, boleh jawablah sekarang.
Ni madam.
Okay, Fanisha.
Okay. Violation of human rights issue, right? Okay. Violation of human rights issues in North Korea basically exists, and it is mostly referred to the discrimination on women. For instance, there have been recorded many cases of sexual abuse toward women, as life of women in North Korea are vulnerable to the endangered situation. It is also happen because there are not establishment for organization of women rights to protect them. Not only that, citizens in North Korea did not have freedom of speech their opinion. Did you ever heard about some teenagers in North Korea were forced by their government to be forced labor for about 12 years just because they watching South Korea drama. This is shows that North Korea government have no consideration on their citizen. Okay, that is all from me.
Okay, thank you. Very good answer. Okay, next question. Fanisha ni dia bersemangat. Cuma dia kena buang sikit dialek tu. Kan? Dialek Kelantan tu tak sebunyi sangat. Okay. Okay, next question. Alright. Okay, soalan lain?
Madam nak tanya. In North Korea,
Okay.
how does election is work during on the election day?
Okay, North Korea ada election tak?
Ada.
Tapi how it works? Sebab dia kan autokratik. Okay. Okay, so siapa nak jawab?
Saya, madam.
Mana? Nadira?
Ya, saya.
Okay, Nadira sila jawab. Madam dengar.
Thank you for your question, Izzah. Firstly, on the election day, all population above 17 years old must go to vote. When it's someone's turn to vote, he will receive a paper that only has one name on it. There is no space to write something or boxes to tick. Then he needs to drop the voting paper in the box that has been prepared there in open area. There also a room to vote in private space, but doing that will cause a suspicion and maybe the private police will go after you. After all the voting process, all people who vote need to celebrate it and to express your happiness after the voting process. That's all from me.
Hipokritnya North Korea dah tak payah undi. Okay, very good answer from Nadira. Okay, kita move ke soalan ketiga.
Saya, madam. Why is there only one name on the ballot paper?
What is what?
Why is there only one name on the ballot paper?
Kenapa ada satu nama je kat ballot paper? Ada yang boleh tanya? Ada yang boleh jawab?
Saya, madam.
Mana tak perasan. Salwani. Okay, Salwani jawab. Salwani kat mana tu?
Rumah.
Bila kamu balik daripada college? Raya Lepas raya?
Balik raya.
Okay, tak datang dah. Okay.
First of all, the Workers' Party Korea, WPK, is the ruling party in North Korea and under the leadership of Kim Jong-un. The Korean people glorify their president and adhere to the concept of union. The concept result is only one name appearing on the ballot paper. And for the North Korea, they are likened to the one family and only election and only elect the one president, the same president.
Alright, kenapa hanya ada? Sebab dia autokratik Kenapa dia buat election walaupun sebenarnya tak perlu nak pilih? Sebab dia nak tunjuk pada dunia yang dia negara yang bagus, yang mengamalkan demokrasi. By right dia autokrasi, faham tak? Dia nak tunjuk pada dunia dia buat election. Dia pun negara demokrasi. Tapi sebenarnya dia adalah autokrasi. That explain lah why ada satu nama je, sebab dia election tu sekadar hiasan je, alright? Nak mengaburi mata dunia. Alright, okay, and last question.
I have a question.
Okay, Alia.
How does someone get an autocracy? How does someone get a power in an autocracy?
How does someone get power in autocratic government?
Yes.
Okay, macam manakah kalau negara demokrasi kita ada election, tapi kalau ada autokrasi, macam mana mereka dapat kuasa untuk jadi pemimpin? Okay, kan? Siapa lagi last sekali tadi? Sahira ke? Siapa? Okay.
Usually autocrats gain power because they be part of nationalist, forces movement or communist. So once they got the power, they will eliminate all other authority in that country lah, such as judgment or political parties. So there no other kind of power that will seize their power. That's all.
Okay, so maknanya dia akan, bila dia ni macam ni North Korea ni, dia jadi adik-beradik dia je, anak beranak dia. Lepas tu bila dapat power, dia akan buang orang yang menentang dia, orang yang tunduk pada geng dia je dia akan ambil. Alright, so that is how North Korea works. Okay, sebab dia tak nak orang mencabar kuasa dia. Okay, 2B selama 2 minggu presentation, Madam rasa Madam puas hati lah. Madam rasa presentation kamu semua ada quality. Okay, tapi boleh improve lagi in terms of presentation, in terms of your macam mana kamu present, macam mana kamu pronounce. Tapi basically okay lah. Slide tu jangan terlampau wordy sangat. Wordy ni banyak sangat hurufnya, banyak sangat perkataannya. Dia lebih bagus kalau macam besar-besar, macam diagram. Sebab ini presentation, orang takkan nak memandang ayat satu-satu ni. Okay, so tapi but then improve lah. Okay, bagus lah. Alright. Okay, so pesanan Madam untuk kamu semua menghantar, buka lampu, menghantar ya Allah, jangan main, menghantar report. Okay, menghantar report. Sorry kalau gelap cerah tu. Menghantar report pada link yang telah Madam berikan. Okay, so Madam bagi masa seminggu. Minggu depan kamu hantar, and then minggu depan kita akan belajar pula cara-cara nak jawab soalan final test. Madam akan bagi kamu tengok soalan final test yang 2 sem ni. Soalannya memang berbeza daripada midterm test. Soalan dia suka pusing-pusing dan pening-pening sikit. Madam akan tunjukkan kepada kamu eksklusif untuk kamu je soalan dan juga skema jawapan. Alright. Okay kelas, sehingga kita jumpa lagi. Terima kasih semua, tahniah semua. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih Madam.
Terima kasih Madam.
Terima kasih Madam.
Alright.
Terima kasih Madam.
Alright.
Madam jaga anak Madam.